Hey guys, Basement Horrors, and today I have 10 true horror stories. Now, a few months back, I had 3 true horror stories, not just one, about 3 of them actually. Three true horror stories. But due to copyright, I didn't have an infringement, but I was afraid that, I'd get a copyright strike or whatever it's called, but I've decided to re-upload it. But this time with 10 of them, I think I can do better than I did a few months ago. So, without further ado, here's number 1. My parents were on their honeymoon to Key West. They arrived at the hotel to check in, and they were told that their room would be non-smoking. With my dad being a smoker, they requested a different room. They got the room switch and went out to their room. As they got off the elevator, the smell of fresh paint was overwhelming. Down the hall, there was a painter with all necessary supplies laid out around him, and he was painting the wall. As my parents walked past him, they casually greeted him, and the painter had absolutely no acknowledgement of their presence. Whatever. When they got to their room, the smell of paint was even worse in there, so bad it wasn't even bearable. So they decided to go to the front desk and change rooms. When they explained the situation, the attendant looked very confused and informed them that there wasn't a scheduled paint job on that floor for that day, but agreed to change the room. My parents go back to their floor to grab their luggage, and the paint is completely gone. All supplies cleaned up and gone within 10 minutes, and the smell of paint was completely gone. At this point, my parents were freaked out, but didn't think much of it and go to their new room. The next morning on their way to breakfast, they overhear a tour guide talking to a group. My parents tuned in, and when the guide mentioned the floor that they were supposed to be on, apparently a long time ago, on that floor, a painter that was painting on the floor had fell down the elevator shaft to his death. Now, my parents don't normally believe in the paranormal, but after an event like this, they had no explanation for. It freaked them out a good bit. Number 2. One night when I was maybe 10 or 12, I had troubles falling asleep. My bedroom was the entire top floor of our house, with my bed and such being on the left, and storage closets and a play area being on the right. I was lying in bed when I heard a noise from the other side of the room, and seeing a rocking horse begin to rock. It was just sitting outside of one of the storage closet doors, and it proceeded to rock its way halfway across the room and stop dead under the ceiling light. At this point, I was freaking out and buried my head under the blankets, and never peeked out again till morning. Number 3. Me and some friends had just graduated high school and wanted to do something fun now that we had some free time. We ended up going camping on this Native American land in California. Well, we spent like 2 days there and then packed up to go home. On our way out of the land, me and some friends started to joke about the natives and things like drive faster before they shoot arrows at us, and crap like that. Then out of nowhere, our car hits a bump and we ran over something. We stopped to see if we hit an animal, and we see it. It was some skinny, long-legged coyote. We start looking at each other, debating what we should do. Then the coyote starts getting up. Then we see its real size. That thing was massive. So me and my friends are already crapping our pants. At this point, we decide to get out of there as soon as we can. Then we still don't bring this up today. But by leaving the scene, me and the driver hear our 2 friends in the back scream, "Oh my gosh, it's coming at us! Go now, go now!" Me and the driver check our mirrors, and the coyote was walking off into the distance on its hind legs. We jammed faster out of that creepy land and didn't say a word till we got back on the freeway. To this day, I still think we might have just been seeing things, but it looked so real. This is the worst thing I can remember when it comes to things like this. Number 4. I had a good friend die when I was 10. We'll call him John. He died pretty tragically, too. He was hit by a car literally right in front of my house when he was chasing a ball that it bounced into the road. Fast forward 7 years later, and I'm babysitting my little sister. She's playing outside, and I'm on the porch swing reading, and she's shooting hoops in a little Tykes hoop. The ball bounces out into the road, and I look up to see her yell, "Don't go after that ball, John." Freaked the crap out of me. She never knew about John. I asked her who John was, and she said that he played with her outside sometimes. Number 5. 3 or 4 years ago, I used to be in my old school's netball team. One day, we were waiting for the teacher to come so we could start training. I was in the middle of a pitch, and suddenly the lights went out. Blindingly, I tried to find my way back to the other girls, but I tripped over something cold and hard. Out of nowhere, a cold, small hand touched my bare leg, squeezing and rubbing it up and down as if it liked me. It was trying to find a guide in the dark. Out of fear, I asked, "Who is it?" And a feminine, childlike voice answered, "It's me," and giggled playfully. Shortly after, the lights came back, and I was in the corner of the pitch while the other girls were huddled close together in the opposite corner. There was no trace of whatever the thing was that had been next to me. Number 6. It was late fall in my senior year of high school. I was driving myself to school at this point and usually left around 7:15 a.m. to start the 20-minute drive. My parents' house is a split level, and I was putting my shoes on and landing between the two levels. My mother and father were already gone to work, so I was home alone. I grabbed my coat and went downstairs to go to the back door. I feel I need to mention that this house is on a large lot with a lake and dense woods, adding to the spook factor. It was also pretty dark still this early in the morning. As I'm putting my coat on and getting ready to step out into the early morning fog, I heard heavy footsteps on the stairs, heading up to the top floor. The house was hardwood floors, so you can hear every single step and shuffle. My first thought was, oh, my dad must have left his phone here at the house or something. So I walked back over the stairs and yelled a sort of smart aleck remark about him always forgetting something. I wait for an answer. I yell up again, "Dad?" and wait again. But when I'm met with silence, I make a swift turn and double time back to the back door. As I reach for the handle, I pause and hear rapid footsteps following my escape route pattern on the first floor, through the kitchen and into the dining room, stopping at the upstairs back door, right above me. Now, when I say rapid, I mean crazy, crazy fast. That inhuman kind of speed that gives you chills in all the scary movies. I yank open the sliding door, quickly stumbled out, and slammed the door shut behind me. I ran to my car as quickly as I could, back it up and turn around into the driveway, and faced the kitchen. I just stared for a second or two, and noticed one side of the curtains is pulled back a little. I get a new wave of chills just as I see them thrown back down. Needless to say, I get out of there. I've never been so scared in my life. I didn't end up calling my dad. He went home and checked the house. Nothing was amiss. No one in the house. All the doors locked and secure. So in a nutshell, totally unexplained occurrence. Number 7. When I was about 6, I was in the bathroom of my grandma's house playing Bloody Mary with my slightly older cousins. We were sitting on the floor in a circle. The only thing behind me was a wall. When they were doing the chant, I placed my hand on the ground to use as leverage to scoop myself in the corner for protection. When I did that, I touched a bare foot that was directly behind me. It was actually coming directly out of the wall. I screamed for someone to turn on the lights. When they did, there was nothing there. Everyone's shoes are on, so it couldn't have been one of their feet. Number 8. My mom and I were visiting friends and family in Alabama. They were at her friend Amy's house, and they were telling me about all the dumb, scary pranks they did in high school, and different urban legends from the area. Before we left for the night, Amy told us about a story my mom apparently hadn't heard since she moved away after high school. I was sitting on the trunk of the rental car as she told me the story in the driveway of her house. The story was about a specific four-way stop where a woman had been hit and killed by an 18-wheeler. It was a hit and run. They say that the ghost of the woman jumps on the steps of the 18-wheelers that passed through, checking to see if the driver had killed her. Needless to say, we had to go through this four-way stop to get home. We got closer and closer to the stop, but couldn't really see when it was coming up on account of very little lighting on the back roads of Alabama. My mom and I were joking about how glad we were that we weren't in a big truck, Next thing I know, my mom says, the trunk isn't open. The trunk is open. I laugh and say, shut up. That's not funny. Thinking she's trying to scare me. She pointed to the illuminated light on the dashboard, alerting us that the trunk was, in fact, open. We pulled up to the four-way stop. Can you hop out and close it? She asked. No, I screamed. You can get out and close it. We looked at each other for a moment and decided to wait till we get to a well-lit parking lot to go close to it. I kept looking back to make sure it hadn't flown open. My mom drove through the four-way stop at excruciating slow speed to make sure it stayed down. Then I get to thinking, hey Mom, wasn't I sitting on the trunk before we left? All of a sudden, the trunk slams shut, and I mean slams, like full force from fully open slamming down. My mom and I had one of those comical movie moments where we turned to look at each other, turned back, then screamed bloody murder. My mom then floored it, and we raced to the nearest parking lot, frantically screaming nonsense, trying to explain what could have happened. The trunk light was still off when we pulled into the lot of the Hardys. We both got out of the car and went to the trunk. On the bottom of the trunk lid, where you touch to close it, were two muddy handprints. Number 10. I work at a Titanic museum filled with real artifacts. We usually hear little things but don't even think about it. One night, we were following the last guest out and cleaning behind them like normal. I happened to glance through a window into the captain's bridge and saw there an officer there against the back wall. He looked up, made eye contact with me, and nodded. I instantly had chills down my spine and just ran out of there. None of the guys who dressed up worked that night, and when I got downstairs, I glanced at a picture of the original 1912 crew and came face to face with the officer I saw upstairs. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. There'll be sure to be more coming out pretty soon, probably within the next 2 days. Sorry I wasn't really around last week. I was sick. So, that's basically it. So until next time, like always, have a horrific day.